Hey everyone, it's Emily Rose Heyer, mind body coach for moms, and welcome back to the Four Agreements book study. We are on week 2, and we will be reviewing the questions in the workbook for week 1, which was just last week. It was the first 2 chapters, and let's see. In the introduction, right before the introduction, it talks about the Toltec and the philosophy behind the Toltec. And in the introduction, it's called the Smoky Mirror. And then the first chapter is about the first agreement. So we're going to cover a few of these topics. So if you are following along and you have your workbook, go ahead and get it out and follow along with me. So I wanted to first start off with the idea, the concept of this smoky mirror and the illusion of life, the dream, the collective dream, the personal dream. It is kind of like a meta idea, and it can be kind of hard to understand. But when you read through the book, I feel like he really does break it down. And so I wanted to ask you in this workbook, in what ways have you noticed the illusion or the dream of this life? So for me, what I was writing down was definitely growing up in church. Again, I made a disclaimer in the first video, introductory video, is I think this book can fit into your faith system. It doesn't have to be against it, but some faith systems and religions might look at this as like heresy. So take what you will from this. I'm not saying all church is bad or all religion is bad or all faith is bad. For me, growing up in the Catholic Church and then the Christian church, it was a lot of smoky mirrors for me. Just feeling like it should be a safe space, and then the reality of it was that it wasn't always a safe space. And if you've been alive in this world for any amount of time, you've seen the corruption that can be behind any institution, especially the church, any religion, not just Christianity. So for me, that was a huge part of like seeing this illusion, this idea that we've created, and then the reality of it. What really started that was when I think it was about 9, I found out Santa wasn't real, which meant the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and like everything wasn't real. And I was so committed to being a good girl for God that I also prayed to Santa because I wanted to be good for Santa, because that's what they teach you, right? You need to be a good girl so you can get gifts. And so I would like go to bed praying to God, and then I would switch over and pray to Santa because I thought they were both real. So when I find out what Santa's not real, okay, the Easter Bunny, it's all my mom. My mom's behind all of this. My next logical question was like, well, does that mean God's not real too? And so I kept on believing in God in my good little girl way of, trying to be the best version of myself in my own way as a child, going to church here and there with family. And then into middle school and high school, I started going on my own with my friends. And I really, really wanted that to be my life. And unfortunately, I was shown that humans are humans everywhere they go. And then into my adulthood, working in corporate, I really put like a lot of my faith into the leaders of these corporations I would work for. I was an HR manager, so I got to see behind the scenes of what these executives were really like. And again, I saw corruption and greed and the illusion of these corporations doing good with their beautiful mission statements. It really got shattered for me. So those are just a few ways for me personally growing up and into my adulthood that I kept realizing, like layer by layer, that humans can be amazing and they can be severely flawed. And when you put anybody in power and in an institution, it can magnify. Not to say I think all humans are bad. I think, like he says in the book, it's up to you and how you think and how you speak into the world. And how were you raised? What were you conditioned? What words were spoken into your life? What spells were cast over you? So the next question in the workbook is about domestication. In what ways have you noticed your own domestication as a child? So what is domestication? It's the taming of your wildness, right? You're born into this world as this wild and free being, no limitations, no boundaries. You just exist, you just are. You're free to be until you're told you're not. Until you're trained, you're conditioned to believe certain things, to act a certain way, to talk a certain way. You don't choose your religion when you're little. It's chosen for you. Your language is chosen for you. So in what ways have you noticed your own domestication as a child? I personally was told I was too much and too loud. And I really got stifled down over time. If I made funny jokes that were inappropriate, or kids say things like fart and we're told like that's not ladylike, especially as a woman. We're domesticated and conditioned even more so to be tame, right? You can't have a wild woman. You can't have a little girl not acting ladylike and crossing your legs and wearing cute dresses, that for a little girl to be wild and rambunctious and in the dirt and, Band-Aids on her knees and getting scraped up. Like over time, I was taught to be the good little girl, to quiet myself down. Even so, when I was in a theater class in middle school, I was having a really hard time projecting my voice to the back row of the audience like the director wanted me to. And he was like, why are you having such a hard time being loud? And it occurred to me, even then at 11 or 12 years old, oh, I've been told to be quiet my whole childhood so far. I don't know how to be loud. I didn't know how to speak from my whole being. So I had to be retrained in that, in choir, learning how to use my diaphragm and project my voice because I had been told I was too loud and I had to be quiet. So in those little ways, over and over and over, as a child, we're taught you're too much. So you start to talk to yourself that way. And we'll get into that in a second. So the next question is, as a parent, do you see the ways that you are domesticating your children? And this is not to like call you out or judge you. I'm a parent. I do this too. So I end up saying the same things to my son. Like it's wild. I know I don't want to say these things, but in the heat of the moment, I end up saying, gosh, Corey, you're too loud. Like, and I make it that he is too loud. Like he's the problem. But in reality, it's like, I'm actually sound sensitive and I don't like all the noises. I get overwhelmed and overstimulated, but my words are at him, which will internalize to him that he as a being is too loud, too much. And so I catch myself and I have to backtrack and say, okay, mommy's ears don't like the sounds that are too loud. Can you try to be quieter when you're doing this action? And I tried to separate him from the behavior, him from the actions that he's doing, and not make it that he is wrong, right? So, sorry, I have something in my eye. Think about that when you're talking to your children. Are you making it about who they are as a person? Or is it that their behavior is what you're trying to correct? And even so, reconsider the correction. Is it really necessary to correct them in that moment? Or are you acting out of your own conditioning and replaying the correction that you received as a child? I realize that I'm always trying to keep him safe, which of course, I'm a mom. I want to keep my kid safe. It's my maternal instinct. However, I definitely have gone overboard in that way and saying, oh, be careful, or don't slip and fall. Or if you do that, you're going to crack your head open. Like you can hear all the phrases that we say to our kids to try to keep them safe. And the problem is kids do need to experience a little bit of risk, and they do need to experience some pain and falling down and bumping their head on, something, and experiencing gravity and learning from those mistakes. And unfortunately, it just sucks as a parent to see your kid get hurt, and you don't want to just let them run into a car, right? But you have to let them have some risk, take some risky actions so they can learn how to be in their body. And they learn from experiencing that pain versus mom and dad just saying, don't do this, and like keeping them domesticated and reined in. I believe that leads to further rebellion down the line. And if they don't have that confidence in taking care of themselves when they are taking risky action, they end up doing stuff just because their friends told them to do it. And we all know that road. So let's move on to the next page. I talk about I'm asking who is the judge and who is the victim. So in the book, he talks about these concepts. So the judge is the voice inside your head of all the conditioning of what's right and what's wrong, and who you should be and who you're not being. And on the flip side, you're the judge, and then you're also the victim. You're the victim of that conditioning of being told, I'm not good enough, or I'm too much. And we have this internal battle of the judge and the victim. And he mentions that you are the worst enemy of yourself. You don't need anyone to judge you or to tell you off, because you do it enough to yourself on a daily basis. And so if you could watch how you speak to yourself, you would understand that you are creating a lot of your own problems in how you feel about yourself, how you act, because of how you're speaking to yourself internally. So it's just a good practice to really get present and watch how you're talking to yourself. And then that will, come out in how you're speaking to others as well. So the next question I ask is, what causes suffering? So I'm talking about you're judging yourself and you're the victim of that judgment. So you're suffering, but you're believing that something should be different. Judgment and comparison. So you're being judged, you're judging yourself, you're judging other people, you're judging reality, and you're saying, this is bad, it should be different. And when you argue with reality, you're going to lose, right? This is how it is in this moment. You can go with it and change yourself and move in a different direction, or you can just fight against reality and believe it should be different. And if you notice how many times you say should on yourself or other people, I'm very aware of that now. I have an immediate reaction to someone telling me, oh, you should blank, whether it's in a judgmental way, like you shouldn't do that or you should do this, or even if it's a suggestion of something they think I should try. I have this rejection of the word should, because I've noticed how much I should on myself, and I want to get away from that. So I try to block what other people are saying to me and really come back to who I am and what I want to do. So I ask, name 2 old agreements you've made that you would like to break now. He talks about breaking old agreements before you can really agree to these new 4 agreements, right? So if you've been judging yourself and you've been the victim of that judgment, and you've gone around and around in this circle of condemning yourself and condemning others. So if I believe I'm too much because I'm too loud or whatever, and I see a child like my son Corey doing the same things that I did as a kid, my internal voice will come out and speak that over him and say, you're too much, you're too loud, you're too wild. So I have to break that agreement with myself. I'm reparenting myself and saying, no, Emily, you're not too much. You are perfectly made the way you are. You can express yourself. It's safe here. And then I'm able to actually embody that and say that to my child. It's very hard to take the second step without the first. It's hard to correct behavior in your children when you haven't done the work with yourself. So those are two agreements that I've been breaking, is believing that I'm too much and that I'm not good enough, because that ultimately leads to self-sabotage and not following through with what I say I'm going to do, whether it's to myself or to other people. So say I decide, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore because it doesn't make me feel good. But yet at the end of the day, I'm not feeling great about myself. I've been judging myself. I feel like crap. Reaching for a drink looks a lot better than feeling these feelings. And so I end up self-sabotaging and going for the thing I said I wasn't going to do anymore. So plug in whatever you want to do. I don't drink anymore. That's just an example. I've broken that agreement a long time ago, but plug in whatever it is that you end up doing because you make yourself feel like crap with your internal judgment, your internal talk. Now apply that to your children. What are the actions that they're doing because they are ultimately not feeling great about themselves because of all the external judgment that they're now internalizing? So how do you see this first agreement as a teaching tool with your children? So like I just said, when you can model this in yourself, you are way more able to teach this just by being. So they will see how you act and they will become that. You don't necessarily need to sit them down and teach them these words. You become it, and then they model that after you. So watch your own inner self-talk, and that will transform how you speak to your children, and that will transform how they speak to themselves. And only say what you mean and mean what you say. So really start to watch how you're speaking to yourself and to other people, especially your children. And I would suggest using some of the lines in the pages of this workbook or your own journal to start journaling out some of your thoughts that you have about yourself and have about your children, what you believe that should be different, what you would like to change, and ask yourself why. Why do you think that should change? Why do you think you should be different? Ask yourself why really gets down to the core of it. And then you can see, oh, maybe I don't really necessarily believe this. This was just taught to me. And maybe I can let go of it. And maybe I can choose something different. That's what this whole thing is about, is becoming aware of who you are and who you've been conditioned to be, and then letting it go if it doesn't work for you anymore and choosing something new and becoming the parent that you really want to be. Okay, so next week, we will be on the second agreement, which is don't take anything personally. Oh my gosh. This one, still work on every single day, all of them really, but especially as a parent, especially. So read chapter 2, don't take anything personally, do your workbook questions and come back to the next call. You can send me answers in an email or comment in the YouTube video comments. Reach out if you have any questions, or if you want to just give me some feedback on your experience, I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.